it's Amanda here from Lolli Lulu Crafts, and today I have for you a Halloween project using these gorgeous Tim Holtz dies and also his Distress Oxide inks, a vignette box because we're not making a card, we're actually making some home decor, and some gorgeous little lights, so that's going to be a bit different. This is a project that's actually been inspired by Stacey from Tim Holtz's design team. I'm not exactly sure if that's her proper title, but I will link in the original for you on my blog post and on the paragraph below the video here if you're on YouTube, so that you know exactly who the original was and how theirs looked. And I think theirs turned out quite different to mine, so in the end, but it's sort of similar but different, but definitely inspired by it. It was a fabulous project, so I really recommend you go over and take a look at it. Okay, so we're starting out. I've got these gorgeous little lights. Now with the vignette box you need to actually put a hole in the back. I wasn't brave enough to do that, I have to confess, so I just got my dad to do it. He tells me it was really easy. All you need is a little hand drill thing, and start with a small drill bit and work your way slightly bigger until you have a hole big enough that you can pop the lights through, because they need to thread through. Next I wanted to create like a vellum back to my vignette box that's going to go in front of the lights, but not all the way forward in the box. So the easiest thing to do is I took a piece of vellum, I cut it to the right width, and then I just popped it in, and as you can see I'm just using my score tool to get the score lines in the right place for the actual height of the box. I just thought that was the easiest way, and then I just cut the excess off to create two little flaps. So the next thing that I wanted to do was to use some inks to do some distressing on the vellum, but also I have some cheesecloth sort of, I guess, gauzy stuff that I also wanted to actually colour. So I've put a couple of colours down onto my heat resistant mat here, and then I wet it, just not like super wet, but just to make it so that the ink would absolutely absorb into this cheesecloth. It worked much better than I thought. It really took the colours and it didn't go super muddy. I wanted it to kind of be mushed up a bit, but I wanted to still see some of the distinct colours, and even though I'm sort of rubbing it around in that pile, it sort of really took to it well, and you can see all different patches. So pop that to one side to dry. I then did the same thing again, but this time in a bigger area, and when I wet it you can see I'm just mushing it up a little bit. That's a technical word, you know, mushing. Mushed it up a little bit with my paintbrush, and then I'm literally just going to dunk my vellum into it. Now, unlike like your watercolor paper or whatever, the vellum resists the water quite a lot. It will run quite a lot on it. So I gave it a few seconds just to sort of settle, and then I actually took just a piece of kitchen towel and took some of the excess water off. It wasn't going to dry it completely, but it was just running a lot, and I just wanted to hold it in place a bit. And then to really set it, because I didn't want it to continue running, I kind of liked it, I just took my heat gun and I dried it off. Next I wanted to do the die cutting, so we're going to die cut various elements from both these two die sets. I can't remember their exact names, I'm so sorry, but I will put them on my blog post. I'll link all the products for you that I've used. And so with this I'm taking some black card, I'm die cutting the little houses, the spooky houses, the cat, some other bits and pieces. I then took some pattern paper and I just die cut what appears to be sort of a rough tops of the houses, the roofs. They weren't perfect because I knew I was going to have to come along and use my scissors and just cut things off, like the roof there. I just needed to straighten the bottom. I wanted to take the chimney off, and so I did that on all of them just to create basically the roofs. I'm going to distress those even more, but I just felt that it needed something extra on the roof. And again, this was something that I saw on Stacey's that she did. I think she did hers a little different to mine, but it gave me the idea and I kind of liked it. And again, I just kept going round with various coloured inks and distressing those up, and you can see there to the side they're sort of going blacker, and then I did the smoke with the darker grey and the black. And then I felt that even though they were black, that the little houses were just a little bit too perfect. So I just took all different coloured inks, including these oranges and greens and purple, which you wouldn't think would show, but it did. And I kind of just doubled it on, and just to make the houses less perfect. Then I had these little trees that I'd cut out. Now I deliberately cut them out in cream cardstock because I wanted them to be paler, the same as my ghosts were cut out in a very pale cream and also a pale cream patterned cardstock. And I just again took my Distress Oxide inks, I'll try and say that one a bit slower, Distress Oxide inks, and I just went over them to create the different colours and the different effects. Just then otherwise if it was all on black card it would all be a bit samey, so I thought that would work better. Next, once those had all sort of set, because Distress Oxide inks stay damp for a little bit longer than your normal distress inks, I think. So once they'd set it off a bit, I glued the little roofs on, and I think you can see it does look quite effective. It just gives them a bit of interest, but I still wasn't entirely happy, so I was sploshing it with a bit of water again just to distress it up a bit, just to add some interest. But again, still not happy, so I added some of the coloured ink onto my mat here, took a paintbrush and was flicking. You can see there was quite a large blob came down there, but it didn't matter. I just took the super excess amount of it off, and I just kept going, flicking things. I'd put different colours, and I just generally went along the houses, the trees, everything, just adding a bit more really to it, just to add more distress to it, to make it more spooky, more kind of, I don't know how to describe it. I guess distress is the only way. And that's all the different elements. Now you can see a couple of ghosts there that won't distressed. You'll see why they weren't later. There's a reason, and you'll see that later. But then the next thing I decided was I wanted to add a little bit of foiling to the trees and also the roofs. Again, I just thought it would add a little bit of something. I felt like maybe with the lights behind as well that it might just catch a little bit. I wasn't sure, but I felt like it still would look nice even if it didn't. I just thought it would add a little something. So I used my Zig pen. I allowed it to go off a little bit so it was sticky. You want it to be sticky, not wet. And then I just took the this was just like loose leaf foiling, you know, your that you can then rub off if you want to as well, and it can go really shiny. It's really cool. So I just was patting that in place. It was really random. I didn't like cover the roofs 100%. I just sort of went over it in a kind of a scribbly way so that it wasn't perfect, as you can see. And then once that was done and I was happy with that, I then decided I really wanted to add some vellum behind the little windows. So I've got some green and some orange. I felt that with the lights behind that it would just show through a somewhat. I wasn't sure to the level because I think it depends on exactly where the positions of the lights were. I might, you know, you just can't be sure, and you might want to be careful and think about exactly where you place them. So this is why I had a couple of ghosts that weren't I hadn't bothered to distress, because they're going behind the vellum, so they're going on the side that the lights are going to be through to create a shadow. So the next thing I wanted to do before I stuck my vellum in or anything else was I needed to decorate my box up. Now I used just some papers that I had. Again, I'll list them on the products, but I then just used some distress medium to stick them down. Once I'd got that all in place, I used that distress glaze and popped it over the top. I'd never used it before, wasn't sure what it would be like, but it made a really nice effect. I was really, really pleased with that, actually. It kind of made it seem like it was part of the wood. It was like it was already part of it. It was really, really nice effect. And there, as you can see, I'm just threading my lights through. I then made a little box to put my little battery box in, because I wanted it to obviously not be glued to the back of the box, because you need to be able to get to the batteries, etc. I've actually got a photo with the dimensions on the box and how so you can see how to make that, and again I'll put that on the blog post, but I didn't want to go into it here. There was so much already going on, but I just felt that would hold it in place. It was important to just keep it safe, but to be able to use it to be able to get the batteries in and out. You then saw I had popped the lights in and I just stuck them down really roughly with tape. I think in hindsight I might have been a bit more careful about where I positioned them, maybe thought about exactly where the houses were going to be, and where maybe the windows for the houses were going to be, and therefore think about making sure that the position of the lights, one or two of them, were in the right place to shine through. I was lucky that one in particular was spot on, and it definitely looked better for that. So it's a learning curve. I'm not quite sure how I do it and get it right, but maybe just attempt to. Here you can see I've added the vellum, so the two pieces were sort of to the back a little, and it was just to get that sort of, when the lights go on, you will shine through and you'll get the gorgeous sort of shadowing of the little ghosts. There you go, you can see it there. And you can see here where I'm starting to add the house there, you can see I've just put the church, it's not actually glued down yet, but you can see how the light is shining through, and it definitely makes a big difference to the vellum, whereas when I put this one down, there's no real light behind it directly, so you're not getting quite the same effect. You still get a good effect, but it's, you can see the difference there between that church where I've glued it down and the light's really shining through, and here with the pumpkin I decided to put him here because the light could shine directly through, and I just think it looked a bit better, so I perhaps could have thought that through a bit more. It didn't occur to me, so hopefully you can sort of learn from my mistake. At the end of the day, I'm not sure it's a massive big deal. I think it worked fine anyway. I think it looked great. I just think maybe it could have looked a tiny bit better for it. So here I'm just adding some of the elements. You can see I'm just using a hot glue gun, and this is the gauze that we coloured up, and it just added a bit to the bottom there. It sort of hid perhaps where some of the glue was for the little bits and pieces that we added down. I felt it added a bit of dimension as well, and I just think it, I don't know, it just kind of looked a bit like tumbleweed, didn't it? Kind of give that sort of kind of ghost town feel, I felt. I don't know if it does or not, I just thought it, personally I quite liked it. And then I've got these little cobwebs, and you can just see here that I had actually inked around these even, because I felt I was going to leave them black, but I just felt it did look better just slightly around the edges, so adding a little bit of I think I used hickory smoke, and it just give a little bit of dimension, and those I think looked really good with the lights coming through. Just again, with them being at the front, it was really effective. So you'll see here I'm just adding a little spider on the side. I wasn't intending on doing that, but I actually had damaged that piece of paper on the side. I managed to get a bit of glue and it ripped it, and so rather than just try and get another piece down on the side there, I just decided to add that spider. I don't think I had any more of that pattern paper in, so it just would have been a pain, and actually I thought the spider looked kind of cute. I then added that little cone, and I thought that was quite a nice little touch as well. It was almost like a little reality, like real bit of element in there, which was quite cute. This little ghost, I had to add, you might have seen there, I added some black foam, and that was because the top of him, if I hadn't given him something to sort of to lean on, he would have just kept folding in, and it just wouldn't have worked very well, because the bottom part was so little to glue down, those little tendrils, so I thought that it was safer just to add that bit of foam tape, and then I just used my hot glue on the foam to stick him down, but I felt that was a little bit safer. And then I added that Happy Halloween across the top there. I just thought that was, again, another cool little element, just to add a bit of extra. And there it is with the lights on, and you can't quite see it perhaps in the same way, because obviously I've still, even though I've turned my lights down, I've still got some lights on, so it's definitely worth going to see the photos, because I photographed it with zero lighting other than the lights from the box, and it looks so good. I've obviously put a couple of photos at the end here, but even though so, I've got a lot more on my blog posts. And if you don't know how to go to my blog post, just go to the paragraph below this video if you're on YouTube, and you'll see where it says show more, opens up, and you'll see a link under there, and it will take you straight to the blog post. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and this project. It's something a little different for me, and so I hope you've enjoyed it, and I would love to hear what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now. Bye. Evermore I run to the mountain far north,
have nowhere else to go. How did I journey so far into a wasteland? Where was my salvation?